Hello, Lawrence. It's great to finally have you on board. I've been working up to this now for about 7 weeks, so it's good to have you on board. And I just want to encourage everybody straight off the bat, get over to Lawrence's page on LinkedIn and take a look at it. He does the very best media stuff I've seen. Just amazing stuff. So, how do you do it, Lawrence? Tell us the story. How did you go from, I see you were an accountant now, or tech person, now in the accounting arena, and now in basically the multimedia stuff? What's the story there? How do you have so many skills at such a young age?
Yeah, so it almost feels like I've gone full circle just because I actually started my very first business when I was 17 years old, which was in photography, and then I moved into videography and doing content creation back in the early days before we had even Instagram. So mainly YouTube content. So I was doing that for two clients at the time. But yeah, I was always a bit of a techie and a bit nerdy when I was a kid, and I wanted to get into IT, and then I sort of morphed into engineering just because I did some work experiences like, oh, this engineering thing feels cool. But then, yeah, with the NBN coming along, National Broadband Network in Australia, I just didn't like what the government was doing. And I decided to leave that industry and go in because I always feel like I need to be in something where I'm helping people. And then I had experience, and also because I was running my own business and I had been quite successful with that. I was actually more successful in my own business than the teachers that taught me at university, which I always thought was quite funny because I was like working a Saturday, Sunday and earning more money than them. And then, and I also had experience in the family business, which is the accounting firm that I'm a part of now. And yeah, after leaving engineering, I tried a few things, and I was also doing a second degree. So I was doing an engineering degree and a business degree. So I decided to pursue that a little bit further, tried out working in the accounting firm, and just really enjoyed it. So that's where I went into with that. Now I really focus more on the business advisory side just because of all the different experiences that I have had between running my own business from a young age and then helping other people grow and scale their businesses while I was doing all the multimedia, helping them with sales and marketing. And now the full circle that's come around is now I'm doing it for the accounting firm. And it started by me doing it all, but now to get the volume of media out, I've actually hired a videographer and an editor. So just really important one, which is always my principles, is learn how to do the thing first. Because so many people, they try to like abdicate. They just go, oh, okay, I'm going to pay this marketing company to do my marketing, or I'm going to pay this person to do whatever. For me, I generally get in the trenches, do it first, learn, and then I know specifically how I want it done and how it needs to be done properly. And then I hire the people and train them up after the fact. So yeah, at the moment, the reason why I'm able to pump out so much content and also the quality has increased as well is because I've got a dedicated videographer here, and I've also got an editor who is overseas, and he does a really good job with the edits. So that's how we did that full
That's
circle back
fantastic.
around to doing media again.
And I've got to say a personal thank you there. I like the way that you just slide in the trenches in there. And thank you from M&A Profits, Lessons from the Trenches. Beautiful segue there. Thank you, Lawrence. Okay, so I didn't get you in here for your tech skills, I've got to say. I got you in here for your brain. And you've obviously got the traction, the experience behind you to talk with people and to give people on this podcast a great deal of value and understanding. And we've spoken quite recently, in actual fact, about putting together a model for doing roll ups and setting up the structure for that. So I'd really like to get, and I think we spoke particularly on the health industry as well. So I'd really like to get your take on how to build a business, how to grow a business, and how to prepare it for those roll ups. And even maybe explain, I've just used the term roll ups because I assume everybody knows. But if you want to give us a bit of insight into that, that'd be fantastic.
Yeah, so I do believe that each industry does have its different nuances, especially around how between the acquisition, the valuation of the business, and then how to actually scale them. The main thing that I generally believe is that if you're only growing through purchasing other businesses, it's not as viable as if you are able to purchase businesses and then at least grow them organically. And if you want to supercharge it as well, then we can also put ads and whatever other marketing things behind it. But in general, we want to look at businesses that are growing, and that can be very different for different industries. So one of the models, especially in the healthcare space, is actually more around the relationships, just because, especially in Australia, a lot of the work that's coming for healthcare is around the aged care and the NDIS sector. That's the fastest growing
Mm.
areas. But generally, aged care and NDIS are not going to respond well to perhaps social media ads compared to other industries. So in that case, that's where we actually want introductions. I've got a client that's done very, very well in the allied health space where they've managed to get in with one person who manages a lot of aged care facilities. And it's just insane if you can get the right contracts because you might go and do 10 aged care facilities and they have 100, 200 residents in there. And if that person's on a government plan where the government's funding, just say every quarter for him to go out there and do what he needs to do, it's Commonwealth money. He just goes in there, and because they're all in the same location, it's very, very efficient to then service a lot of different patients. So that's one way in the healthcare space where we can scale quite quickly is by having those relationships. Whereas a different business, then we might look at Facebook or Meta ads or other ways of scaling up. But we want to have a way that we're scaling the business up whilst we're also looking at other businesses to purchase and roll into that one function. And then that way we can use the efficiencies of having the top level either admin or billing or team, where instead of having that duplicated across three businesses, we might be able to bring three businesses together and then consolidate those different functions.
Well, funny you should mention aged care. We haven't actually spoken about that at all previously, but I've recently just done a merger of five different aged care facilities into another organization. What, 73 million, I think it cost to do that. And it normally you work on about a 2% integration cost on top of the purchase price. With aged cares, it's a bit more than 2%. It's probably about
Mm,
4%. It really is because of all the regulatory requirements, and the facilities are generally needing some upgrades as well. But it is a very lucrative environment. You are correct there, absolutely. So yes, if you can get hold of those, that is a fantastic way to go. And there's always buyers out there for them as well. So you don't even,
mm.
from a business perspective, you don't even need to be the person buy. You can be what the Americans term as the bird dog. Go out, find the deal, get the rights to it, and then on sell it straight away.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So from
I think there's a lot of that lacking in Australia. It's like America, it's like they're very, I don't know, they're sort of like really on it, whereas Australia was just sort of, I think there's a lot of opportunities here, especially in that healthcare space, because it is quite fragmented at the moment.
well, in Australia, there's a Chinese organization that owns 35 different hospitals around Australia, and it has actually just cancelled their contracts, their health benefits contracts. So,
Mm.
how do you grow a big business? Or so, what do you do with a big business of 35 hospitals? Cut the throat of all the health benefits organizations, and you can get a really small business from that. Wonderful. Uh,
Yeah, there's
Genius
plenty of
business
opportunities
opportunity.
for us locals. So,
Yes. So, what do you need to grow a business? Now, my personal opinion is that you need a good back end. You need an accounting area. You need a HR, a payroll, all of this sort of stuff. What do you think we need at the back end to make these businesses work and make them efficient?
ultimately, especially when you're buying existing businesses, about getting the operations and the actual service correct. A lot of times, with a lot of quite successful businesses, there's always room to actually make them serve their customers even better. And generally, from that, you do then get a lot of organic growth because the biggest hurdle that sometimes can happen, especially depending on how much the existing clients know that there's a change of ownership, is that some people get a bit funny with that. And people who buy and then they just hope the business will do what it needs to do. That's where we do see a lot of failures, and that's why sometimes people put in contracts, clawback agreements, and all that. But ultimately, if you don't want to have all the churn, which is a term used for existing customers leaving, is just to really step it up. And my advice to anyone, especially if they're purchasing another business, even if it's a small deal, is to really look at what the service level was prior and how can you do it even 5, 10% better and just give people that much better experience because I'll be like, oh, this is actually much better with the new ownership. We really want to stay on board. Maybe we'll purchase it and upgrade what service level that we have with them, or we'll actually start recommending other people in and say, hey, you know, this new podiatry clinic, they've got this new guy in there, and oh my God, he was absolutely amazing. He went above and beyond and he helped me out with this. You need to go see him. So that could be an example where if you can get the right people, the right systems, the right processes in the back end first, and make sure that the clients are being served. And then you want to have that operational capacity to be able to add more people into that business just because we don't want it to collapse from the top down by just going sales, marketing. But if the
Mm.
back end operations is really inefficient, we can't service clients, then we're just going to start losing. And the biggest issues, if we do lose the existing clients, we want to try and hold on to those as much as possible because it's always much cheaper to hold on to your existing clients. And plus, you just paid for them in the purchase of that business than it is to try and acquire new clients.
So the first thing that I would do in a situation like that is go and survey your clients. What are they like? What would they like? And then give them that wow factor. I got a new haircut. Hope you like it. Uh, but I was sitting getting my haircut, and they had a nice bar there. They had coffee. They had everything there. How many people have been to a health provider and had to wait for the doctor, wait for the service provider?
Mm.
Give them something special. Why not give them a coffee? Add on what other facilities can you add on to increase the revenue? Always be trying to think about different ways. Now, obviously, coffee may not be the right thing, but what are those extra things that you can do to provide extra services to your clients that can become income producing and provide that wow factor?
Mm, exactly. And yeah, sometimes it's just a really small thing that people say, well, even what you're saying with the hairdresser situation, I actually had a hairdresser when they bought a few salons. All they did was they started just putting hot towels on people's faces. It doesn't really cost them anything extra. I think the maybe an extra $2 or $3 a haircut. But they ended up charging $10 more per haircut, and people stayed and they loved it. They loved the experience because if you're a busy person and you're like go go go, and then you have a nice warm hot towel on you just to sort of calm you down a little bit before you go back into the workplace. A lot of people really enjoyed that. And obviously, it's very specific to the clientele and the location. That was in a corporate environment. So it's definitely a lot of just little small things that don't actually cost much that provide a big wow to people. And they're the small wins that we want to get early on.
That's right. If you can provide those wow to people or wow to the client, and you were talking about aged care before, it's not just wow to the client, it's wow to the family in that case as well.
Mm,
Then that's going to keep them there. Then over time, with any acquisition, you're going to make changes to the environment. People don't traditionally like changes. So that's going to be the downer for them because they don't like changes. But if you've already got the wow and they can say, oh, we're going to do this, but there's going to be something come out of it. Something that I highlighted yesterday was always sell the benefits. Don't sell the the process. Sell the benefits. And when you go into when you acquire a new organization, you've got to be selling the benefits, not just for today, but down the track, so that you can take the people on the journey with you, don't you? Do you think?
Yeah, 100%. Because for everyone, it's what's in it for me. So, yeah, that's from staff to people in management. Everyone gets a bit fearful around change, especially if someone's an employee. It's very different to an entrepreneur or a business owner who's just like myself. I'm like, I love change. Like, I love changing things and moving them around. But what I've learned even running the accounting firm is that staff that they don't like it. They like the comfortable, just things are the same, things don't change. And the only way that I've discovered to make changes and get everyone on board is first to sell it, sell them the benefits and paint the vision and be like, hey guys, how does this sound? Would this sound really good to you? And then if they say, oh, actually that sounds amazing, like, all right, well, we need to make these changes. And then that's how I get people more on board. And with purchasing businesses, it's the exact same because people they hate change. As soon as they hear, oh, new owner, whereas they freak out because it's just human nature. It's just human nature to freak out, and that's totally okay and that's totally fine, but it's really on the onus of whoever's coming in there to really help settle that and tell people, okay, we're going to do this for you. We're going to make these improvements. So it's not only the improvements for the clients, but also the existing staff as well that we have to paint and show them that there is benefits, there is improvements. It's not one of those horror stories because everyone loves talking negative things of like, oh yeah, this business here got purchased and they ripped out all our benefits and just tried to maximize profits and everything else. It's like, no, you need to look after your people as well.
Horror stories. I have seen some of your videos on LinkedIn, and they come up with these scary headlines. And I watch this and I think, oh, okay. And then you're there the whole time, and then you wait until the very end, and then you come out with the solutions. So yes, I've seen you do some horror stories on your LinkedIn profile and your videos. Scares the willies out of people and then come through at the very end. But yes, you, I, I, I'm sure that's just a social media thing. Uh, but okay,
It's because your brains are lazy and I need to hook you in.
well, yeah, okay. I'm not admitting to that, am I? Whether it be true or not, because I think I've already admitted to watching the videos. Uh, so guilty. Okay, so let's get down to some. Yeah, let's talk tech. Okay,
Yeah.
mergers and acquisitions. We're talking tech. You've got quite a broad experience here. Where do you see the tech coming in and giving us those benefits?
The
Love
biggest
putting you
one
on the
is
hot seat.
the most shocking thing that you'll realize is that there's so many businesses out there that are so behind on tech and are still doing well. And it's sometimes I'm shocked. I'm like, how can you be so technology agnostic and still do well? But the really, really awesome part about that is that it means that there's so much opportunity for someone coming in
Mm,
and reviewing that business. If they're doing well without tech, and then all of a sudden you can add in tech just to make things more efficient, make it easier for staff, make it easier for clients. There's so many benefits that you can actually extract out of that business really, really quick, whether it be cost saving, more efficiency, or a better customer service experience. Especially in the health space, a big one. I'm shocked how many practitioners. I know it's changed a lot now because of what's happened over the last couple of years, and more people have adopted tech. But there's so many practitioners that you still have to call up on the phone and talk to a receptionist just to book in an appointment. And I get that we still need that service for just say
we
like
do.
your 80-year-old grandma that might not know how to use
Mm,
an app or whatever. But for all your clients and even some of the like, I'm not trying to just attack more elderly people, but a lot of them even know how to use the apps and everything these days, and that they'll prefer to just book in an appointment, or like they'll have their daughter or son or whoever do it for them as well. And there is a doctor's clinic that I look after that I stress to them implement just an online booking system, and they had three receptionists, And now because they don't have one that's constantly there taking phone calls, trying to book people in, trying to reschedule things, and now because it's all done through their online app, they can do it way faster. And because that online app integrates with their whole entire practice management system, even when they book in appointments, it's much faster for them to find out exactly what slots are free and everything else with the person's details going in. So they've managed to go from three reception staff to just two reception staff. And they have much better call wait times with the lower staff as well because they have a lot less call volume and different people trying to do a lot of things they can do now online, which saves them a lot of time as well. So it's a better customer experience and it's also better for the staff. They're less stressed.
Even my wife's, here I go back to hairdressers, even my wife's hairdresser does that. And they do something else. When they've got a slot or a cancellation, they text it out to people. Hey, we've got a free slot. Be here at this time and it can be yours. Book in, whatever. So that way they've got the consistency of the booking system right the way through. So that
Mm.
again would work with the health system as well.
Yeah, and one thing I like, someone who adopted tech really quick was the doctor that I see. And they've even got this almost like live timing thing where it'll automatically text you if the doctor's running behind. And they'll give you like a prediction saying like, oh, actually, because the doctor's always running behind. And they say, oh, don't worry about coming to the clinic until this time. And like, oh, I appreciate that because like I can just keep working on my laptop or whatever. And then I'll be like, all right, I'll run over to the clinic in half an hour's time instead of waiting in the wait room, going
Mm,
twiddling my thumbs, sort of wasting time. So that's also where we can use technology to start really helping with the customer service experience because it's one of those things that's unavoidable because a really good doctor or medical practitioner, they're not going to just kick someone out because their 15 minutes is up. Like that to me, that's
yes.
just that's someone just trying to get their Medicare, whatever it is, the bulk billing or whatever, where it's just like 5 minute medicine. But if you want like a really good doctor, sometimes they might, and you want them to do that for you as well. It's like I might book a 15-minute appointment, but if they discover something or whatever else and they explain it, it might be 30 minutes. I'd rather them spend that extra 30 minutes with me than say, oh, no, I need to keep to the dial of whatever. So I understand
Mm,
that point of view. But then, okay, so that's an issue, but how can we solve it with technology? And that can be from that live timing, sends out a text message saying, hey, unfortunately, Dr. X is running behind. Please come in 1:30 instead of 1 p.m.
mm. I mean, accountants, they're another one that won't kick you out after your time slot of 6 minutes. They'll just clock up another 6 minutes and charge you for that as well, won't they? You must know something about this, surely.
Maybe 10 years ago, but we do fix monthly fees, so we don't
Ah,
do our clients know exactly how much they're paying, and then it's on us. If we take too long, then we foot the bill. So, but
oh,
yeah,
well, there
if
you
you go
go.
to, I think lawyers and some other accounting firms, they sort of drag it out a little bit because they're like, oh, next 6 minutes started, we get an extra however many dollars.
I can't slag off at lawyers too much these days because my goddaughter's becoming one. There's always one black sheep in the family, isn't there?
Yeah, they're one of those things. It's like you need them, but sometimes they don't. Your wallet don't like them as much.
Okay, so let's talk lawyers then. Why don't we? Okay, so we're doing a merger and acquisition. We're doing it of a health facility as an example. When should we get a lawyer involved? And what do you think they should be
Before,
focused on for us?
yeah. So lawyers definitely. You want a really good lawyer in your pocket. One to write up contracts that are really good because I've seen a lot of business sales where either someone else has had a really good lawyer and their lawyer hasn't been great and a few different clauses have slipped through and then they've used those different clauses. Or I've read it and I can't give legal advice or anything, but I've said to someone before, go back to your lawyer about these clauses here because I can't explain them to you. But from my experience, I know that they're like horrible clauses. And then the other one's like, oh, no, it's a standard procedure. So if you have a lawyer who's sort of like that, fire them because what you want a really good lawyer that one can draft
Hmm.
agreements that at the end of the day we want agreements to be fair and reasonable. It's not about trying to screw the other person over or anything like that. We want to keep a good business relationship, but unfortunately there is people who are there to screw people over or want to try and get the most and they don't live by those same principles. So that's where you want a really good lawyer who can go through each clause and actually have attention to detail to ensure that either if they're writing up the contract or the other party's writing up the contract, that there's fair terms for both sides, and that we can cover different instances of like, okay, what happens in this case, especially depending on how you do a purchase. If we retain the other person on just say a 20 or 30%, generally, I like to put in what's called a drag along agreement. So just say that we own 80%, we want to sell, that their 20% won't hold up the sale. It's like we're all in. If there's a sale there, it's like everyone shares it in if the majority are there. But sometimes those aren't put in. And then what can happen is that if you have one person who owns 20% and they're not super, super happy for whatever reason, and then you find a really good buyer and you own 80%, you're ready for your exit, you got all your numbers lined up, that person might say, "Oh, actually, no," because they get jealous or whatever else, and they might try and hold up the sale on you, even though they only have 20% because they don't want to sell their 20% share because they said that
Mm.
even though you put all the work and all the effort, but some people get a bit closed off going like, "Oh, but it's my business," and blah, blah, blah. It's like, well, it is your business, but you spent 20 years and you only got it to like $1 million of whatever. It's like we scaled it to $5 million in like a
In
short
three
period of
years.
time.
Yes.
Yeah, in
Yes.
3 years or whatever. So it's like, and we kept you on with your 20%. So you got a very, very good deal. But some people go, oh, but it's my business. I should get, the benefit of the 5 million more so. So in those
And
cases, that's where
fine.
you want really, yeah. And it's
We've got
fair
a
enough.
we've
It's
got a
like,
program for that. How about you keep your 20% and you roll up into the next sale and you stick around and you manage the place, your business, you manage it for another 3 to 5 years, and then that 20% will give you another sale and make you all the money that you're looking for. How does that sound? So we have a program for that.
yeah, yeah. But I'm just saying these are different issues that
Yeah.
can pop up. And yeah, because as
You
much as
don't want to
people try to
screw
think that
someone
they're
over.
rational,
You just don't.
yeah,
You want to
yeah,
be
you
able to
want it to be
deal with
fair and
these people
reasonable.
on an ongoing basis.
Mm,
Um,
yeah.
yes. So it's that isn't the job of a lawyer. The job of a lawyer, I think, is to build a good fence between neighbours.
Mm,
The old saying of a good fence makes good neighbours. You need to understand the boundaries, understand what where things are going into the future and right now and into the future. And that's what a good lawyer does, I think. But I love that
yeah.
drag along clause that you're talking about there. That's a ripper. I don't know if people would have thought of that or actually do that out in the field. So I we'll make a special note down below at the start of that one for you.
Yeah. Well, like I said, I can't give legal advice or anything. I can just say go to a lawyer and ask them about it.
Hmm.
And if they don't know what a drag along clause is, maybe they're not the right
Find
lawyer for
another one.
your
Okay, so test number one. Do they know what that is? Okay. So what others? We've covered tech. We've covered. Oh, you did tax. We should probably talk tax. Have you got anything good for us to keep in mind during a acquisition and a roll-up on a tax side of things? What are the gotchas and what are the failures? Actually, tell us about a failure that you might have seen.
Yeah, probably the biggest failure is when someone just operates just out of a straight trading company, and when they go and they actually sell the business, they're not selling the company, they're selling the business. So then the proceeds of the sale goes into the company. Now, with the company, it's taxed at 25%. So a lot of people think, oh, I'm only getting taxed at 25%. But just say that when you're doing a roll up, because we're rolling it up into a new entity, what's actually happening in that is that the shares of that business aren't actually being purchased. The business is being purchased out of the company. So the
Hmm.
capital gain goes to the company pays 25%, and people think, yep, cool. The issue then is trying to get the money out of that company because it's not your money because the company owns the business and the business was sold and it's owned by the company. And then the biggest issue that I find is that with companies that don't access the 50% capital gains discount, so then this causes issues down the track because if a person wants to then pull that money that they got out, just say it's $1 million, $2 million, they're paying top marginal tax rates. Now, there
Mm.
are a few ways if they're less than $2 million turnover that they're small business concessions, but I'm talking more about people who would be on the $2 million revenue mark here. Um, and what I find is that if we can change the structures around before they start the business, using either a trust structure or a unit trust, or just a different form with the company where we can then have the capital gain go into a trust and then out to a person. Because once we're beyond the small business concessions, we can at least access the 50% capital gains discount if the capital gain is going to an individual at the end of the day. If it ends up in a company, we don't get the 50% capital gains discount. But if we can get the actual purchase, so the capital gain into an individual's name, so just say they get $1 million as a purchase, they'll only be assessed on 50% of that if they can access the 50% capital gains discount. So what this means is that effectively, even if you earn over $190,000 as salary, and then you get a $1 million capital gain, and because you've had the business for more than 12 months, what you can, with accessing the 50% capital gains discount, you're effectively only paying 23.5% tax on that whole entire exit. So that's also where I say to clients a lot of times where they try to strip as much money as they can out of their businesses. I'm like, no, no, let's not worry about stripping out all the money and trying to pay you the highest salary. If you can hold on and just keep reinvesting and building that business and go for a big exit, your exit money will always be taxed less as long as the structuring is correct from the get-go than later on. There are a few other
Okay.
cases where if you do set it up to sell the shares in the company, I still recommend having the shares of that company owned by a family trust because you can then, with the capital gain, you can also then split it out to other family members.
Wow. Okay. So, two things from that. One, I'm going to go back and I'm going to put a warning, bean counter talk coming up at when when this started. And two, get prepared. Always get
Mm,
prepared because that seems to be the theme for everything. Don't start thinking about this just before you go to market and try and on sell the business. You've got to do it at the very beginning, seems to be the story. And what was so, yes, that seems to be the theme of this. It really does. And we've only got a few minutes left, but I do want to say, oh, that last segment, by the way, is a perfect example of how Lawrence does his horror stories first and then comes through with the 23% at the very end. So again, 50%, I'm giving away 50, 25% here, 50% there, and then, oh, okay, 23%, because Lawrence knows how to do it right. So
mm.
that's what you've got to get to. Go through this, prepare, and make sure that you're talking with someone that knows what they're doing. I honestly didn't understand a lot of that, Lawrence, but what I get from it is go and talk to someone that does. That's the essence
Yeah,
of it.
it's trying to
You
condense
don't
down to
need
one
to
hour.
understand it all and the technicalities if you're dealing with good professionals. And that's the key.
Yeah, yeah,
My
because
granddad had a
generally
saying.
explain that over an hour.
Yeah. Yeah. My granddad had a saying, which I'll impart to you. Why have a dog and bark yourself?
Mm,
So
yeah,
you don't need to be the expert, though, as you said before, it's good to know how something is done when we were talking about the media side of things. It's good to know how it's done. But when it comes down to regulations and laws and things like that, you've just got to go and see a professional. Don't risk it.
100%.
Yes. Well, thank you, Lawrence. That's been really quite amazing. I think we've just about covered everything here. We've covered relationships, tech, tax, lawyers, roll-ups, health, hairdressing. Anything else that we should have covered that we didn't, or yes. Okay, so how would you like to leave this, Lawrence? I'll let you have the last word.
First of all, thank you for having me on. I enjoyed a lot of those questions that you asked me, which was, I think, will give a lot of people different insights and perspectives. For me, I'm always putting out my, like you said, doomsday videos with like a good piece of advice at the end. So I'm quite active on LinkedIn, Instagram, and TikTok. They're the main platforms that I do post a lot. So whatever social media platform that you do enjoy going on, feel free to give me a follow, Lawrence Petruzzelli. Just
It'll
look up
be
my
down
name
below.
and
Yep.
yeah, or in the show notes below.
Yep.
That's the main thing. And yeah, if you got any questions, feel free to send them through because I'm always quite responsive on socials and I can also make a video just for you if you have a really good question they want to put out there. So I always appreciate that. And yeah, that's the main thing from me.
Excellent. Well, I'm so pleased to finally get you on here. It's taken a little bit of work. We've had a few discussions to get you here, but it's really been worthwhile. I think you've been able to demonstrate an enormous breadth of industry experience and are able to communicate to all different industries. Now, one last thing, there are many people here that are watching this from outside of Australia. What do you suggest for them? Because there's been I imagine there's been very little that's been just focused on Australia.
Yeah, so the skeleton, and what I mean by that is that the 10,000 foot view, so the outside part around the whole mergers, acquisitions, the way businesses work, it's very similar across the whole world. Then when you dive in a little bit deeper, that's where you need probably your local experts because like laws
Mm.
are different in different countries. The regulations are a little bit different. The way tax works, obviously, I can only advise on Australian tax. So when we get into those more minute details, then yeah, you need to find local experts to uh, bounce things off or get their experience and knowledge of the local laws and the way the tax system and everything else works. But when it comes to business, building relationships and people, it's all the same globally. So, you might learn something from here and you might actually do deals in Canada. And the actual principles are very similar, but you just get a different tax lawyer and a different tax accountant to help you out with all the different smaller moving parts. So you're always really good to learn from people who have been there, done that, no matter what country they're from.
Well, Lawrence has donated his time here. I'm sure he would have normally been billing in 6 minute intervals. Oh, sorry, no, that's not you, is it? But anyway, please give a reward to Lawrence. Comment, give some feedback as to what you've got out of this and how you've actually gone out and used it. That would really be inspiring for Lawrence and much appreciated, I think. But get onto his socials. He is, oh, I can't say just full of it, can I? Okay, he's full of great information. And yeah, it's a great way to go. So thank you, Lawrence. Really appreciate you being on here today.
Thanks, Craig.